So welcome today to our board governance practice session on the topic of ethic and posh with Geetha Panda. We have a person, Geetha Panda is a global technology leader. She is also part of a lot of women's committees and advisory boards, specifically talking about posh and issues facing women in the workforce. She has been on TV speaking about the recent TCS Posh case, and this is one of the topics we'll be covering today. This is a very special session. We also have Helen Weissman here today, who is one of our Diversify Distinguished Director Program committee members, who is been chairing international boards and has a lot of experience, 15 years of experience of being on boards, and has offered to chair today's session. And let me explain a little bit about what that means. This is a board governance practice session. And what we are doing here, and is explaining specifically for non-members, because our members actually know, but these practice sessions are meant to reflect a boardroom discussion. Because many of us have decades of experience in corporate settings and in C-level discussions, but not that much experience in board discussions. Board discussions tend to be more high level, more strategic, less into the details, more into the big picture. And that is something we can practice together. Also, I think it is very important that we understand the politics and the way boards generally work. And here Helen Weissman has given a masterclass actually on board politics, which is part of the Diversify Distinguished Director Program recordings. So that is available for our members. And one of the things that she's been talking about is trust is the currency of the board.
Mm.
And one of the things that we cannot simulate here that usually a board has, which is each board member should know the other board member to some degree in a more personal manner, not just as a function, but as a person, because that is what builds trust. And actually, Helen talks about it quite significantly in her masterclass. So this is one thing we can't completely replicate here, because we have a lot of guests today, which I'm very happy and proud to have. But just to give a sense, what Helen will do is she will basically kick off the board session just in a way that we would usually start a board meeting, which has to do with attendance, who is in attendance, minutes of the last meeting, what is the agenda. So these are the kind of things usually how board meetings start, right? So Helen is the expert. I have not been chairing boards. I've been part of boards, but I have not been chairing boards. So I will hand over to Helen to do the beginning, but then Geetha will be the one actually presenting the two cases that we are going to be discussing today. So she has done a little bit more research. She has been talking about these topics in public. So she will give more of a detailed insight before we start discussing it amongst ourselves. And the goal is that we discuss here together in a way that would help us understand at what level would we be talking about these topics, and to what level of detail do we go, and what would be the conclusions we would be drawing for the board, or for the, how we go, for example, into the public, right? Because if you have these kind of cases, there's a lot of publicity you have to manage. So what are the kind of outcomes you expect from a board meeting around these topics? I hope I've given enough introduction. My name is Silvia Smetana. I'm the founder of Diversify, and I'm handing over to Helen Weissman to officially kick off this board meeting.
So just before I do, I'm going to check in a couple of points. So Sylvia, I'm sort of nominating you as our secretary for the meeting.
Thank you. I will take notes.
And so I assume that you're fully across the agenda. I just want to check that we've got an hour for the meeting. How much time have we allowed for today?
Yes.
An hour.
Yes, for now.
Well, excellent. So welcome everyone to this very special purpose board meeting on the very important and very current topic of ethics and posh. I'm very pleased to have Geetha join us today I guess to give us the benefit of sort of her perspectives, the landscape from which we can then start to generate a discussion. So, in terms of the minutes of the last meeting, those have been circulated prior to this meeting. Does anybody, just go with me on this, does anybody have any comments or changes to those minutes?
No comments, no changes from my side.
Excellent. Okay, then we can note those minutes as being accepted. And if you put my signature to those afterwards, my electronic signature. It's also really important to ask at the beginning of meeting whether there are any declarations of interest, potential conflicts of interest for the matters that are on the agenda. Presumably not in this case, but it's important to ask that. And then I'll set the agenda for the meeting. Does anybody have any other agenda items or specific topics that is important to bring to my attention now? So everybody's comfortable with the agenda. Well,
I
then,
don't have any further points.
no,
Geeta, any
excellent.
further points that you want to bring into
No,
the
I think we
discussion?
have a full house today, and we also have a full agenda. Thank you, Helen.
Well, then let's get to the main item on the agenda, the primary purpose for us being here today. So Geeta, I know you've just been formally introduced, so I really would like to invite you to present to the board, give us the, I guess, the landscape, and then what you think are the really important points that we should hone in on for our discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, before we called for this meeting, there were a couple of things that we agreed that we would touch upon today. One is on the POSH and the recent TCS chaos that occurred. And the second one is the sudden exit of Atonu, who was the chairman of the HDFC, one of the largest banks in India and financial institutions in India. So I think we are going to cover a couple of these and reflect on some of the behaviors and what could have done, what could have happened, and what could we as leaders and board members do to prevent such acts at the workplace. So that's primarily the focus points. Any other guiding principles, Helen, from your side?
No, I think if you can give us your briefing, and then yeah, I'll draw on a couple of points, and then I guess open it up for discussion from there.
Sure. So here, I think I'll just quickly, get everyone to refresh their memories on what harassment entails. Harassment means different things in the different mindsets. However, for us as board members, anything, any behavior that any kind of individual in the organization at any level performs that causes unwanted anxiety, fear, or demeans an individual or humiliates an individual, or limits their communication ability, or puts the fear of consequence that could be dire in terms of job loss or anything, is considered and deemed an harassment at workplace. Is everyone in alignment with this fundamental principle?
Well, just on that, what I was going to ask, I should have done that before, is for those that, for the sake of the dynamics of the board meeting, if you can go on camera, appreciate that perhaps not everyone will be able to, but that'd be extremely helpful and will create that conversation environment. So please, can I invite all of you to come on camera, unless you've got a specific circumstance that means that you can't really appreciate it. So sorry, Geeta, you just posed a question. Can you just briefly pose it again?
Yeah. Does anyone disagree with the fundamental foundational agreement on what a harassment entails? I see a one hand up. I don't know who that
Oh,
is.
that's mine. Sorry.
It's Helen.
Okay, cool. Okay, great.
Uh,
Okay,
I'm in,
and
I'm in, but I don't know how to do that thing, the hands up thing. But yeah, you're correct.
So just on that, the way to do the hands up thing, so it's an excellent question. It's not obvious. Is if you look at the bottom of the screen, you see a react button. If you click on the react, then you'll see the button that says raise hand. Yep, there's some thumbs up. You
I
can,
think I got it. Yeah.
yeah, excellent. Sorry. Right, let's get into the discussion.
Okay. So here again, I want to be a little quick so that I can go around the table and take opinions from people. Now, what is repetition versus severity is something else that keeps coming up in board meetings. Is it an offense if someone does something like this one time, or is it someone doing it repeatedly that is considered an offense? One time is an offense, okay? And severity is, one anticipates that if someone has the ability to uh, create an issue one time, they create it multiple times. So you break the cycle the very first time, and that's what the board governances do. There is clear no zero kind of tolerance to such behaviors. So repetitiveness is something that you do not allow. And any questions or comments on that? Because one time, can I let them go? No, you terminate them so that they don't repeat it another time. You do not accept resignation from them, you terminate them. And that's what you do to prevent such behaviors in the workplace. And impact over intent, there is a big discussion around this all the time. What is the impact? There was a incident, funnily, several years ago, where one lady came and complained to her manager, that to a skip level manager, that her manager is constantly staring at her. He's not sent her a text message. He's not sent her emails. There are no anonymous messages, but she found it very hard. Now, whether the person had the right intention or not, action had to be taken. If there is one person glaring at you for 8 hours, that is harassment, and that there is no two ways to it. So I think you need to kind of take both the intent and the feeling. If, for example, if I'm walking on a isolated road, at say 9 p.m. in the night when it is dark, I feel unsafe. I feel that there could be someone who could abduct me, someone who could, kidnap me or harm me. And that could happen to me. And that feeling does not mean there is no need for, since nothing has happened, I cannot take action on it, right? You need lights, you need cops on the street to prevent that from happening, right? That's what we expect as citizens. That's what we want as citizens. So, when somebody is staring at you, do you say about continuously, and that's conspicuously impacting you as a worker, then it is an intent that is inappropriate.
Sorry,
Some echo.
an echo. I don't know if maybe you can go on mute. Has that stopped
Okay.
it? Yes, it has. Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So the one topic that I wanted to cover now was on what happened in TCS. And we all know, we've known TCS and the Tatas as an organization of high integrity, great values, great ethics, great principles, and mind-blowing human resources policies. We've known that, right? For ages and years, we believe that that institution stands for all these great principles and values and all of that. And it could happen there. Now, what happens is when such incidents occur, my view on that situation was, it's been happening for a very long time. It's been ignored for whatever reasons. While we cannot sit and dissect the case because it's sub judice, what is out in the media and what we all know from what actually happened, if there is a third party institution that is coming in and doing an analysis and telling you that there is a problem, of harassment that's going on in your organization across various levels, then it cannot be an isolated problem. It definitely cannot be an isolated problem within the Tata organizations, and it cannot be an isolated problem within India, right? It has to happen elsewhere. It must be happening somewhere else. And that gives us a reason as to why we should, fold our sleeves up and, push the principles and policies, and get external agencies, get trainers, and educate people, and conduct a voice of the workforce surveys across, in a on a war footing. It's so important to do that, because we are, India as a country is waiting to get business now for GCCs, and we're going to rapidly grow in various areas in the coming months and years. And unless we have our foundations all set, we are not going to be able to make it. That's another point that I wanted to highlight for those who are organizational leaders, and who are doing a phenomenal job managing large workforces, who are sitting in this meeting. I would encourage all of you to go and reevaluate how your skip level meetings are going, how your voice of the workforce data is indicating, who's conducting them. Are you having neutral persons actually having conversations with employees on their issues and problems, and how are you addressing that? Just reinforcement, renew your principles and go back and work on some of those. So I'm running several of these sessions, and I'm constantly requesting everyone to go back to the drawing board, go back and re-evaluate your voice of the workforce data, re-look at the process, re-look at the transparency, re-look at everything that you started off doing when POSH was introduced as an act, right? So please go ahead and share your views and opinions. We have, and Anand Mecheri, I think you've had a very large organization in India at Hewlett Packard. So and now you're running a very large business. So anything that you want to weigh in here that I may have missed from an organization standpoint, and then I pass it on to rest of the Diversify members. You can raise your hands, please.
Once we've heard that, then I've got a question that I'd like to ask you, Geetha. But so who was the name of the person that you called?
Anand Mecheri.
Yeah.
So I own a business, Helen, and Sylvia, and Geetha is my chief operating officer.
Got it.
Yeah, and I do a few things, and one of them is IT services, where we employ a lot of people in different scenarios. For example, let's say a vast data center management, which requires people to be in cold environments and night shifts. So, yeah, so I have a precarious position, frankly, Geetha. It's not as easy as it is in a GCC, if I may. Somebody's going to check the diesel. Somebody's working on the server. So it's a very precarious condition. People are working in abnormal temperatures and in late night shifts. So to your point, Geetha, I have these conditions. I work them every day. I think POSH is not, for example, the Goldman Sachs issue. POSH is not about protecting the women. POSH is about equality and ensuring safety for all employees. And that is paramount for me. If you put yourself in my shoes, for me, I don't even know who is at risk. Is there a lad there or a lady there? I don't know. It's a very precarious position for me. And there's all emphasis on just the women being vulnerable, to me is just half the ground. Look at yourself. Look at my condition. I run a business. I have 300 kids out there. They're working night shifts. Some of them are boys, some of them are girls, and they are in a very different environment, cold conditions in data centers, and sometimes they have to go and check if the diesel is fine, and sometimes they are checking if the antivirus is loaded in the server. And so I don't know. I don't care if it's boy or girl. I want their safety, and I want this extension of POSH to be very uniformly applied.
It
Very
is uniformly applied. It is uniformly
Yes.
applied, and
Yes.
it is gender neutral. I mean,
You
I
should be.
don't believe. See, even if you, Mr. Mecheri, if you even look at the TCS condition, they were both men and women who got impacted, and we are empathetic to anybody who is being put in this precarious condition, and
Correct.
it's not about gender at all.
And then the misuse of it. For example, we don't even know what's happening with Goldman Sachs. How about it's a sticky point, yeah? Nobody wants to talk about it.
Right.
That's good.
Is it a misuse of it? So I feel abiding by the law, like Geetha said.
So Geetha,
Independent.
can I have, oh sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off. I was just thinking, because I've got a question for you again, Mr. Machiri. So Geetha, how are you seeing that boards of companies are responding to the issues that have been so prominently presented by this case?
Yeah, so I have actually conducted 4 sessions so far for all the. I mean, I've been mandated by the union ministry to run this across all the boards and stuff. So I've been doing this. One of the things board member is there is a genuine empathy, there is genuine concern, there is genuine urgency that they are demonstrating in reinforcing and redirecting their organizations. I have not seen even one individual from any gender whatsoever or any ethnicity, any kind of the thing. Everyone has deep empathy for people who were and who are getting implicated, and they all want to fold up their sleeves and get on the ground to resolve the problems. I have not come across anybody rebelling and saying, but this is not the right thing that we do. And that's the same thing that's happening with cars in India as well. I think tops down, we are pushing everybody to come up and speak up. We don't care whether it's a client that's going to cost us $1 billion or anything in the environment that they're in. So that's just my observation, but I don't know. I'd like everyone from the Diversify membership for whom we are running this initiative to particularly this particular session to come back and tell us, are you seeing any different sentiments that you can share with our chair today?
And
Anyone
so,
from Diversify?
Ms. Machiri, I'd like to come back to you because I mean, what the points that you raised, the very real challenge associated with this. You described your business. Do you have a board that oversees your business? And if you do, how are
Yes.
they
Yeah.
responding to the challenge that you've outlined, which, like you say, it's very real. You've got to run the business and you've got to run it profitably. So how is your board responding to this? And then we'll open it up.
My own board is a very small one, though, but we have appointed audits to ensure,
Yeah.
and that's more important. Independent assessment has always been a very good methodology. You all agree, and we have appointed. We are not a large business where we can have a department for it, but have independent audits, and we do checks. See, the issue I personally, as a business owner, I see is where people don't open up. They go through the grind of it for the economics of the need. And that is such a shame. But again, we are living in a real world, you see. And
but
that
that also talks about the open door policy and other things, Mecheri, and
exactly
we can get into a very long debate on this. So I'd
yes,
like to hold on your thoughts on that, because if someone is worried about speaking up, that's the
correct.
leadership
The big problem.
responsibility. But that's the responsibility of the organization's leaders, and
The big
leaders like yourself, Mr. Mecheri, that need to give the opportunity for people to walk in and speak
problem.
their mind, right? So, and
Yeah.
not have adverse consequences for telling what they feel.
There is
And
no consequence.
I've not seen any lack of transparency there in our organization, but I really want all leaders to practice that, in terms of the openness that we provide to our employees and the workforce to come and share, the traumas and the problems that they are seeing in the workplace.
And as you highlight, there has to be that psychological safety.
Yeah.
So Mr. Mitchell, I'll come back to you briefly, then I really want to open up the discussion. And I don't know, for example, to what extent, yeah, there are whistleblowing type provisions that are put in place in India or not. But so, Mr. Maturi, just very quickly, just to close out your point, and then anybody who wants to raise a point from a board perspective around this, please raise your hand using the buttons at the bottom. So, Mr. Maturi?
Yeah. So, yeah. See, I see Geeta's point. It is correct. It is correct, and we encourage. How are we going to peddle the matter? Who's grab it? So that's so critical for us. So,
Yeah,
uh, uh, yeah, we got to exhort people. We got to assure safety, and we have a independent audit. We have a department or board which is available for them, or even if they choose. This is this is very critical. Safety
absolutely.
is
Yeah.
paramount, and I believe we are doing everything we can, and yet we have instances. Now, take the instance. It is not isolated to India and TCS. What about Goldman Sachs? Why are we so silent about it?
So then I'd
You
like
know,
to,
it is across the board. It is
yep.
everywhere. So the emphasis Geetha is making, I believe she is a true representation of my corporation, and
Good. Yeah.
which is generally how the workplace health must be.
So let's get some other perspectives on this in terms of, because I think you're so right, Mr. Machiri, in terms of setting that tone from the top. How do we make sure that we are assured as a board that we have put in the appropriate controls, that we are doing whatever we can to prevent such incidents. We can't always prevent every incident, but we can absolutely make sure that we have the right frameworks, which is exactly to Geeta's and yours point. So, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, but is it? You're gonna have to help me out here. Is it?
Srividya.
Yeah,
Srividya
thanks.
has raised her hand first. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Uh, so Geetha, I understand about it. I've been a presiding officer for over 11 years in multiple companies, in large as well as startups, and currently I do take certain posh sessions. So, uh, to to come to the point about, irrespective of whatever may be the case, I have a question over here. I do understand certain large companies have a practice where they have a case management tool, or there is a method which this risk and compliance team, you know, at random pick up a case and actually go and evaluate if this case has actually been even discussed, or was this even looked at. That's the kind of uh, audit which I'm actually always looking at. And there is also a question of the annual turnover. TCS is a very large company, is a listed company, so it gets published, I do understand. But then, um, are there not independent bodies or anybody who actually look into it? Are the internal processes happening that at random, um, checking on, I do understand the internal audit perspective, but then the audit perspective is not just a checklist, it's there, it's there, it's there. No, that's not what we want. I want somebody to go into it and check on the process. Is that not mandated?
It is. It is in all organizations that I have worked for. There is an absolutely mandated process. It is anonymous to the leaders. Okay,
Yeah,
to what gets picked and how the cases get picked and how they get evaluated and how they go and communicate with people. You don't get to know unless you're called for a discussion based on the outcomes after adequate data is evaluated. So it is absolutely a practice in a lot of organizations. Even today, ours is not a very large corporation, but we still have that in place. And it's not a audit on human resource can never be a checklist, Srividya. I think it can never, human sentiments are not about ticking a box, right? It is
that's
about
true.
demonstration of empathy, compassion, honor, respect, and so many other softer aspects to it, right? So you need to really wordsmith the comments that are coming in from the Voice of the Workforce survey, the
Yeah,
various communication tools that you have, the case metrics, as you mentioned, and all of that, and then come to some kind of an assessment on, is this a pattern I'm seeing with this particular individual, or a team leader or a subject matter expert, that I need to kind of, is this something that needs only coaching, or it requires a warning, or it requires termination based on evidences and facts. So those are a real hard decisions that at all levels leaders have to be empowered to do. And the harassment committees and the ombudsman and others that exist in the organization have to be heard at all times. And and definitely facts and data is one way of looking at it, but you also have to look at the words and the choice of words that people are using and the sentiments and the emotions that are associated with a leader that is leading those teams. So that's
What?
that's really how
just
it's
one
done.
Thank
point.
you, Geetha.
Just
Yeah,
one point, because you're talking about the dignity of both male and female. That's most important for anybody, right? But what I have a feeling, having worked in large organizations, it's quite predominant. People use analytics. They look at whatever you get from the uh, case management tool. They also look at what the employee is talking about. There is a method to do those correlations, but that's not the case that happens in a small organization where you just know who has commented about you by the language or by the style of sentence that somebody has written. That's where actually the drawback happens.
yeah. So what I'd like to do is, because we've got some hands up and I know in the chat as well. So we're going to go to Nafisa, then I'm going to go to Mahesh, who's put a hand up in the chat, and then come to you, Dayalu. There's some great perspectives that are coming from this that we can really think about as a board and how we take it forward. But Nafisa, and then after Dayalu, we'll go to Nikita.
Thank you, Helen, and apologies for not coming on camera. Um, I have been following this conversation and just some of the thoughts that I have noted. I'll just bring that up. First of all, I mean, it'll be a little bit, based on different things that have come up, different themes that have emerged in this conversation. Firstly, um, being a DI head of organizations I've been part of in my past stints, and also being the ICC committee member, I've had the ringside view of how this particular whole function works in an organization, and the good, bad, and the ugly, everything. And it's very interesting. It's a very serious business function, and the reporting is very, very strong here. First of all, the Indian Act does not cover men. Indian Act provides protection only to women. However, the corporates, what they do is they bring in guidelines in which they include the safety and protection of women also.
Yeah.
Men also. So that is one observation here. Secondly, we were talking about what are ways to sort of track these cases. No? The straightforward ones come from the complaints registered. The organization would have created a sort of an email ID and reporting mechanism where the employees are confident enough based on the psychological safety that has been provided by the organization repeatedly through communications, through different channels, through posters, through different ways, to give them the confidence to come forward and report. When there are instances, the employees reach out and this is the straightforward mechanism where employees come back and report the cases. However, as experts, right? I have been tracking these cases otherwise also because it becomes very important to see, for example, exits, right? When you see a pattern, when you see a theme in some of the teams where there has been continuous exits of women, your antenna has to go up there, and we need to do a little bit of research where we have exit discussions. You may not get the real accurate responses immediately within even the quarter of this exit, but then you'll have to keep at it. um, uh, I have been part of a particular investigation where we saw a pattern, and then when we did some research on talking to these exits, we got to know that the manager has been responsible in misconduct, or all that you see in the POSH guidelines have been violated, and it's the manager who is responsible, and very silent exits have happened, right? So what I'm trying to say is we need a dashboard. We need to work with the HR systems very, very closely, HR, MIS particularly, to see how the exits are looking like. And we have to deep dive and see what are some of the reasons, right?
Nafisa, I'm just very conscious of time. So you've just made a really excellent point. So yeah, if you can just kind of wrap up to your main point, I want to make sure. So thank you.
I have two things to actually share with you at this point in time. One is my observation during COVID, right? The nature of harassments slightly became different. So when pandemics and when these kind of situations attack, the whole world comes under the cusp of, dealing with this kind of crisis, harassments also change their shape, nature, and the way they manifest. So I think that is something that one has to be aware of. And last point I'm making, thank you, Helen, for your patience. See, all organizations have this e-learning content, which is mandatory for all employees to go through it once a year. Now, what happens with these organizations is that they don't go and revise the content. So what happens, typically the young kids who join, they just easily know what the answers are. They're not applying their mind to it. The vocabulary has not changed. Now, with influx of Gen Zs, I think we need to look at the e-learning content. We have to customize it and make it more relevant to this generation, and have two different kinds of content. One for this, we have to customize it basically. And for managers, people managers, something different. And with that, I shall wrap up, Helen. Yeah, thank you.
You made some very interesting points, and we'll talk about how the board should, wrap up on, make some recommendations. But Mahesh, I really would like to come to you. I'm not quite sure where you are on screen. I could just see you've asked a question in the chat. So you've got the floor, Mahesh. Is Mahesh with us? No?
Oh, I guess we can move to the next, perhaps.
Yeah, so if we go to Dayalu. And again, apologies if I mispronounce your names. I'm so sorry.
No problem. It's correct. So I would definitely go with Ashok Mircharani. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, because see, the POSH has to be okay with both men and women, because I worked in BPOs right from the start, 1999. So that's the first time in India we had thousands of people working together. Earlier to that, IT companies had a few hundreds, but once this BPO started coming up, it was in thousands. So we have heard a lot of complaints. We have heard third-party posh committees. We had people coming and auditing. All that was fine. But I wouldn't say that it was 100% sure that the complaint made was correct. It is usually sometime that I didn't like the manager, so I want to complain against him. We have heard incidences like this, and we have found that out through this third-party thing. So I would like to say that this POSH committee has to be equal to both genders. That's it. Nothing else I have to say.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I totally get that, Captain. I know we are running large corporations, large organizations, youngsters, people, contractors, people who are coming to serve the organization in different forms and shapes. And we cannot have different principles and policies and regulations. While it's a pity that our law and our act is only defining women at
Women.
workplace,
Yes.
which used to be a primary focus point at one point in time, but I guess it's no longer viewed that way with many organizations. Even the smallest ones, I think, are very, very gender neutral, designation neutral. They don't really care whether you're a service provider or a contractor, or an employee that is badged at whatever level you're in. So, but very valid point. And Nafiza, I really appreciate your exit interview point. I think it gives a lot of data, when we conduct exit interviews very religiously and follow through it. So thank you for that. Can we move to the next?
Yep, so Mahesh was just saying that she wasn't audible. So I thought we
Am
could.
I audible now?
Oh, there you go. We can hear you now. So thank you. You've got the
Okay.
floor. Then we'll go to
Yeah,
Nick.
hi everybody. I'm from Safety and Security Systems. So like we have CCTV systems in all the offices, which is quite common. So, and here nowadays video analytics is used for high-end security. Based on AI, we can have behavioral analytics, body language analytics, and Geetha raised the point, worried about speaking up. Even that can be found out if a person, based on their facial expressions and all that. But a lot of analysis, everything has to be done. We have to go a long way in this. But this can be a solution.
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh. I think it's a very good idea to bring in more technology into use for the safety of our employees. Thank you. Anybody else?
Nikita also had her hand up earlier. So Nikita, I'm not sure if you still wanted to raise a point. I'm conscious you had your hand up for quite some time there. No. Okay, so does anybody else have other recommendations that boards of companies need to be thinking about from a practical, or putting in place from a really practical point of view in order to discharge, their responsibilities under the laws, but also from an ethics point of view? There's been some really good suggestions, and I'll summarize them towards the end.
Yeah, can we get to a conclusion, just because of time constraints? Can we get to a conclusion to this point and consider what we would suggest for
I would like to
the
say,
board to do on this point?
Okay, yep.
I would like to say, Helen and Sylvia, I think it's a very broad aspect. I run a company, I have people, and their safety helps me meet my motive, and no amount of discussion is good enough to solve this issue.
Yeah.
But as long as we are resiliently going after them, I believe we are going to be getting better. To me, the one-sidedness of the law doesn't stop me from taking a neutral position. Are we able to do that? That's the question. So I really thank this discussion, all who pulled this together. I liked the way it progressed. We are quite on certain aspects. We are not on others. I think we should be very open.
Yeah, thanks, Anand.
Thank you.
Bhavna?
Thank you.
Then I'm back.
Yeah, hi. I sit on a board of a biosciences company. We've not had any such case, but I'm also on the POSH review committee for some of our manufacturing units. And I wanted to just bring one point here. Uh, POSH Act is fairly comprehensive and we all follow it to the letter, but it's important for us to also follow it to the spirit of it. And the reason I say that is because our manufacturing unit is sitting in a very small place in Maharashtra. What could be considered as harassment could be very different and viewed as, if I'm coming, a woman working in the manufacturing unit coming for the first time ever to work, how I would actually look at a man addressing me, approaching me, would be very conservative and different. So it is important for us to educate the women on what to accept and what not to accept and keep that at a cultural level. And on the other hand, how should the recipient and the person who's, so each of them should be educated about what are the sensitivities of working in a place like this. So when we meet as a review team or a board team, we try and bring to the leaders that they have to be conscious about the cultural differences. And I think that's very important. We do that more as a proactive thing rather than we're not reacting to any comment or any complaint. I mean.
Yeah, thank you, Bhavna.
Very good point. So let me just so the points that have been made, and please correct me if I've missed any, but just to wrap this discussion up and then agree as a board, what are the three most critical actions that we're going to take? So the gender, the equality between male and female. So noting that the POSH Act is towards the females, but I think the principle came through very strongly that we should treat this very much as a human gender neutral issue. The importance of the tone from the top, so the tone that we set as the board. So Geetha, you talked about reinforcing the principles. I think the point that Bhavna's just made about then how do we make sure that everyone is very clear on what is harassment, B, what the law actually requires, but then B, how do we train our employees to be able to translate that into practice? What are those examples of behaviors which are acceptable, which are not acceptable? How do we navigate those cultural differences? And we can use a variety of, so what I've heard, we can use a variety of means to do this, including e-learning, but also town halls, the way that we, written communications. It's not something that we can under communicate, was another point that came through. The idea of analytics, so actually getting the evidence to support where we are as an organization, what are the patterns that we're seeing, and how do we get to the underlying patterns that may not be so obvious. And there were some things that we talked about is emerging technologies. We need to manage the privacy risks associated with that. But also the exit interviews and how we harness that, recognizing that no single method is perfect. The conversations, the engaging with different people can also surface patterns. And at the same time, I mean, I talked about some form of whistleblowing, but certainly the point about creating the psychological safety. So, and then I really liked the point that was talked about, well, then how do we, as a board, get assurance of where we are at? So creating this dashboard, starting to gather the evidence, but then getting this baseline assurance, independent assurance, to tell us, where we need to take further action and close those gaps. I think I have hopefully captured all of the points that were made in this meeting. Is there a significant action that hasn't been suggested that somebody would like to raise, and I really would encourage you to keep it brief. And then I have a proposal for my fellow colleagues to consider.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go straight to the proposal. We're going to have the minutes that will capture all these actions, but what I'd like to propose to really evidence our seriousness that we take this is that we create a separate working group of the board. It'll have its own terms of reference. It won't be a formal committee as such, but it will be, very much a working group of the board with terms of reference that gets announced to the organisation, and we bring on board specialist speakers. We invite them in. So Geetha, you've set the ball rolling today, but who are bringing really kind of practical knowledge that can help us advance. So, for example, Mahesh, who was talking about the technology, that's another great topic that we could have that could come to the working group for further discussion. I'm keen to understand.
Helen,
yeah.
the misuse of it, please. The misuse of it has to be included in every discussion.
Yeah, that was Captain Dayalu's point, which I made a note of. Thank you, Anand.
And when you say the misuse of it, just for my benefit, can you just clarify?
The misuse of the act.
I see what you're saying. So where people are making allegations, which because of,
you don't perform well, you blame your manager and get the hell out.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. We would need our head of HR to obviously be a part of this committee as a non-board member, but otherwise, I think I would imagine if we could start with, say, a committee of 3 board members, and then between us, we can then work, or between those 3 board members can then work out what an appropriate body of work and what a charter could look like for the next 12 months. So, Geetha,
thanks, Helen.
Would that, I mean, we've only had an hour to discuss it, but would those initiatives help support, the very strong platform that you're advocating for?
Yes, absolutely. I think all these points are invaluable and, are points that have to be reinforced. So, not just, at all levels, across the board, across organizations, across genders, and across levels in the organization. So I appreciate that. I had another topic to cover today, but I really appreciate the engaging conversation we have had today. Sylvia, can I request you and Helen to check if we want to do another session separately on the board governance and the politics aspects of it for the team, and because we will really do a disservice. We are 3 minutes away from call closure, so I would like your inputs. While we overshot on the time for the first topic, I think it was very engaging and very nice. So I want to thank everyone who contributed in the discussions.
Thank you.
Sylvia?
I appreciate it. I definitely would suggest we have another board governance session next month about ethics, and maybe we can bring another example besides the HDFC. If there might be other examples we can discuss. I want to thank very much Geetha for being the speaker today and being the voice, and then for Helen for chairing this board session. I think this was a real experience for me. It was very enriching experience to have both of you, and I hope, Helen, you will continue to join these sessions because it really adds a lot.
I've learned so much. So thank you. Obviously, I'm in a different culture, but these are issues that are universal. But gosh, you made some brilliant points, and that the passion that each of you showed for this topic. So I'm Geetha. I'd be more than happy to continue to participate, or get another chair in and continue the discussion that way, to make sure that you're exposed to as many different views as possible. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you so much, everybody who's joining
thanks,
today.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll set up another session at the beginning of June.
Start
Thank
enjoying
you
your
very
weekend,
much.
guys. Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.